Welcome back. Hard to believe that we're starting spring football. Had a coaches run this morning, do the same thing tomorrow. Kramer will work them out a little bit more, and then we'll start on Wednesday. We have 2 practices this week, Wednesday and Friday. Just our helmets and T-shirts the first couple practices, and then next week we'll get into our padded stuff, and we'll, for the most part, go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We do have one Saturday in there when we have our clinic, and obviously excited about working with a lot of young players. That's what it's going to be for the most part this spring ball, is working with a lot of young guys at all positions. We have a lot of key players coming back, but we also lost an awful lot of talent and an awful lot of experience. So we had a staff meeting today, and for us to be where we want to be next year, we've got to do a great job with these young players and some of the guys that are on the cusp of potentially playing that have to make some great strides this spring leading into summer. So we're excited to get going. I know there's probably a lot of questions about who's practicing. I wish that we could get all those names, but we got a whole list of guys that aren't practicing or limited. And so we'll do the best we can with the numbers that we have, and we're going to continue our double rep system. We're looking for anybody to play wide out or anybody to play tight end or D tackle. If anybody's available, if it's 6:20 in the morning, come on over. We'll, if we get Colleen to approve it, we'll throw you out there and let you have a rep or two. So open up for questions.
Chris, you said the number is about 25, you think, total that won't practice this spring?
Well, I had a little bit better news today. I was able to get 5 or 6 guys that I was worried about that are going to be able to do stuff, but I think I've got like 18 guys here that I know they'll be out or limited. I have no problem, Dom, if you want to just list those names off, I can do that. That way alleviate you having to say something to me at 6:40 in the morning when you're barely awake on Wednesday. Guys that are either out or limited would be Dylan Radens, Colin Connor, Nate Jensen, Matt Anderson, Zach Kuntz, Christian Watson, Cole Jacob, Trevor Height, Jimmy Kapuris, Easton Stick, Greg Menard, Cole Karch, Aaron Steidel, Dan Marlette, Jalen Allison, Ty Brooks, Damaris Purifoy, Lance Dunn, and Jack Maughan. So that's a pretty good chunk of guys, and we'll have to, be creative in how we practice, and we've always done a good job of that, and we're still going to, like I said, have our double reps. We'll just limit those a little bit, but it's important that there's a lot of guys in the 2 deep that haven't played much football for us, so we have to make sure that work with those guys and make sure they're up to speed.
Is Easton just precautionary, or is he going through some stuff?
He's got a little bit of an elbow issue. They've done an MRI and everything on it, and there's nothing wrong. It's just some tightness there, so he'll be shelved the first couple weeks. And then he's doing a rehab right now, and it's progressing well. But we need to see what these other couple young quarterbacks can do anyway. So Easton will be limited on what he does throwing the football. He'll still practice and stuff, but we're really going to limit his throws on the elbow.
About guys like Menard and maybe Marlette, will they still have a chance to do some individual work, at least just to get running around a little bit?
Yeah, all the ACL guys will be able to do individual work, but no contact and no competitive drills, no 7-on-7s, no 1-on-1 pass rush. They'll just simply be able to do the individual for the first 20, 25 minutes of practice. And then because they are still in rehab mode, then they'll go with Kramer and go with Bobby and continue to work their rehabilitation, because most of those guys, Dylan's a great example, right at about 6 months. It's a critical time for us now to make sure that over the next 2 months he progresses well enough that you get the entire summer to be able to, put your strength on, put your weight on, get your speed and agility back.
You always say guys are hurt in December, early January. Does this give us a true sense of just how hurt they were, because now they're not playing?
Yeah, I think some guys were really battling and fighting through for their brother next to them to be able to play in the championship and the playoff game, and not to mention the so many seniors that we had that are graduated that have had surgery since. But it's a culmination of starting on July 30th, and which is at least no more. You can't start in July, but the last 3 years we've started in July. You can't do that anymore for NCAA purposes. But starting on July 30th, and then going through the gauntlet of what the Valley is, and then to playoff football and we get done playing on January 6th. And, that's a lot of practicing. That's a lot of wear and tear on bodies. And sometimes they break down. And oftentimes Cole Karch is a great example. He was hurt, I think, on like August 7th. Played the whole season with a shoulder tear and a labrum, and then he finally was able to have surgery. Well, those are 4 to 6 months rehab, and it didn't matter if it were Cole or Jalen Allison who had a shoulder surgery. It wasn't his knee. Jalen, the knee is going to be fine. It was a shoulder that he hurt middle to late season, and he has his shoulder repaired. Well, that's still 4 months to 6 months. So.
Special teams, new punter, new long snapper. How much you pay attention to that this next month?
Well, quite a bit in the fact of we're going to try a lot of guys at long snapper. We have 4 or 5 guys. I know Ross Kennelly's the guy that we're going to lean on right now to see if Ross can do it, because he was really Fish's backup. And then we want to see where Wags' progression is at. And we have a few guys that are going to be coming in this summer and this spring to compete for the punting job. We'll find out if Wags is ready to make that next step forward, or if he's not and somebody else has an opportunity to win that job. We have a great competition there. And then we were able to redshirt Jake Reinholtz, and Ryan will compete with Cam, whether it's for the field goal and PAT as well as the kickoff duties. I think the competition at every position is good, and Cam needs that competition, and Cam's made some big kicks for us. But overall, we know we need to always continue to improve on special teams.
Had injuries before during spring ball, but is this kind of the most daunting list that you've seen, at least in key positions even?
Well, no, we've had, like you've said, we've had a ton of injuries. It's just what spring ball is becoming over the last X amount of years that I've been here. You try to go hard and get a lot of physical activity with the guys that haven't played much. And then you look at last year. Well, we didn't tackle Bruce or Lance or have Demps or Robbie tackle anybody all spring anyway. So just the nature of what you do in spring ball, I think a lot of people have changed now. There's some guys that are going to go scrimmage as much as they're allowed to, and there's other people that have played the amount of football that we have and a number of other schools have, whether it's at the FBS or FCS level, that back off a little bit. Forget not only the concussion issue, because that's an issue, but just the football is 365 days a year now. And you have to make sure that, bottom line, we got to get the guys to Saturday in the fall. And the less hits you have on those bodies, defensive end's a great example. Garrett Malmstrom's a great example at fullback. I know Malmstrom will kick out the power, but I really don't want to see him going against Caleb Butler and Stanley Jones and just having a train wreck after train wreck in practice. We have to be smart with that. So it's a big list of injuries, but in the same respect, a number of those guys probably wouldn't have done a whole lot this spring anyway.
Chris, backup quarterback obviously is now going to be a monster position this spring. What do you want to see out of Hotchkiss and Noah Sanders?
Well, they're going to battle and compete. There's not one ahead of the other right now. I think they both have a skill set that they're smart kids. They both throw the ball well. They're both athletic. But now, how many of those skills can come through knowing what you're doing, especially when we're in a live situation? And we're not going to put those kids in live to the ground very often, but they'll both be tackled this spring. But I want to see how they react in third down period and some of those things, or red zone period. And that's a great opportunity for us, whether Easton's ready to throw the ball the second week or not. Those guys we need to see what they can do under the fire. And we're still going to have James play some quarterback too this spring, because we also know that you go into a season starting in September. We want to make sure that we feel really comfortable with our backup. So those 2 young kids are going to take all the reps in the spring, a number of reps through fall camp, but we're going to make sure that James stays on course too.
Hope then you have a defined number 2 at the end of spring, or is that something that's going to go into the fall?
Definitely not. That'll go through all of fall camp, because I don't think in 15 days somebody can win a job that quickly. I think it's going to take what they do in the spring, and then how much carryover is there in the summer, and then how much carryover would we get to fall camp.
No real spring game this year. That's kind of the way it's going now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. No spring game for us. We'll try to do some situational football. We did that last year some. If you recall, some of the starters played, but we didn't tackle those guys. We tagged off on those guys, and then when we had some of our younger players, we did tackle those guys. We may do some different things as far as having a red zone period on that practice day, having a third down period, whatever it may be. But it'll be more of a practice where we'll have some tackling with some of the younger guys.
Linebacker, another spot that you're eager to watch this month?
You bet. I talked to Coach Ince about that today. I met really with the offense and defensive staff separately to talk about areas that we need to improve upon and different guys we were looking at. But if you look across the board, we have Jabril, Dan, and Levi. I think really three really capable, really good linebackers. But who's the backup at each one of those spots? You know, we hope Merck is ready to make that next step, being in his third spring here. That's a lot of times when it does click. A couple of Mike backers in Bo Pauly and Jackson Hankey we're looking at to see what those two guys can do. And then, you know, that the Sam backer behind Jabril has become more of a hybrid position anyway. So is that somebody from the secondary or is that somebody from the linebackers? It's something we'll look at this spring.
Players coming back, but you've got your coaching staff back as well. Just comment on being able to retain those guys and the loyalty there.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I appreciate Matt Larson and our administration to make this a great place to work at, and our guys and their wives love it here. You know, I credit our community. I credit some of the jobs that the gals have that they really enjoy being in the Fargo-Moorhead area. They enjoy the school system, so they also know this is a pretty good place, and we've had really good success here, and they're taking care of as much as we can. But to be able to have the same guys, and you're not talking to somebody, well, here's where you have your individual drill, or here's where you have your meeting, or here's what we do after practice, and those things you sometimes take for granted because I know there's a lot of turnover in college football, and for us not to have that turnover this year it's a great credit to, or it's a great gift to those 23 seniors to think, awesome, I don't have to worry about a change, and we have such a huge senior class that I think it's big for those guys.
Bush at safety, what's the thinking there with corner?
He's going to play both. Dom Davis is going to play both. James Hendricks is going to play free and strong, and Jackson Brown is going to play free safety too. So we're going to find a couple of guys that we can count on by the middle of fall camp to replace Trey Dempsey. I think it's hard to replace Trey Dempsey with one guy at the end of spring. Dom's played a lot of snaps here. Wimbush has played a lot of snaps here. James Hendricks has played now a lot of snaps. Jackson's played a lot of special team snaps, but has the most experience of practice reps at free safety. So we're going to work all four of those guys to see if we can, who will be the 1 and 2 as we come into next season. But you know, Wimbush started out here as a safety and actually played a little bit of safety a couple years ago as a backup. Then we moved him to corner. Now it's our chance to get the best 4 guys on the field, and with the emergence of Marquise Bridges and Josh Hayes, it's allowed us to be more multiple and be more versatile back there and have both Wimbush and Dom try to play some free.
Limited by injury, obviously, but what's the next step Easton has to take? What's he looking at this spring and then going into fall camp?
Well, a couple things. One, just continue to master all other positions within our offense, you know, so that I think he could tell you what everybody does. But now, you know, as you get into a scenario, what are some things that he would like to call on a third down? What are some things that he likes to do in no huddle? What are some things he likes to do in 2 minute? Those are things that he already has a pretty good say for us. But for us to be really successful, he's the one that's got the best vision of everybody on game day, and that's under center, better than Randy or better than Courtney from up above, and his ability to make more suggestions of here's what I like, here's what I feel comfortable with, and it's interesting because we talked about this as Mess could like something, Connor could like something, Randy would like something, but the guy that's got to pull the trigger is the one that's got to like it. And Easton does make good suggestions, and that's what I'm going to challenge him, is to continue to make more suggestions on how he can become better, but he can make our offense better.
at the championship game, but Easton doesn't get a lot of national attention necessarily. If he wasn't on any postseason. In the couple lists I've seen come out, he hasn't been listed as one of the top FCS guys going into this year, which seems odd. But why is that? Do you think that he
I
hasn't
think part of it is the nature of how we play the game here. You know, we're some people would say a run first offense. I disagree. We're a 50-50 offense when the game's in balance. But when the game's out of balance and we're ahead by 3 scores, we're going to hand the thing off and get out of the game and win the football game. That's part of it. We're throwing it 25 to 28 times a game. We're not throwing it 45 times a game. But, you know, I know one thing. Next year at this time, we're going to be talking a lot about Easton Stick. I mean, a ton about Easton, because the people that have contacted me from the next level, they're raving about what Easton Stick can do. And so, oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big reasons is what we do offensively here too. You know, we're not a spread, look at the sign on the sideline and tell you what the next play is. He's calling the plays. He's running out of a huddle. He's doing all the things that the next level quarterbacks are doing. Plus Carson's success of being able to manage the game. Forget his physical tools. Everybody knows what those are. Being able to manage the game and being able to handle himself. Those are things I think people see in Easton now and say, okay, you're a quarterback in North Dakota State. You're going to know a lot of things coming into the NFL where you have an opportunity to be successful.
Deep in running back, it's a lot.
I know it. That's awesome. Last year, I wish we had 6, didn't you? We wouldn't have had to redshirt Seth, or we would have been able to redshirt Seth. But, you know, that's a unique position for us. Obviously, it's an important position, no more important than anything else, but it's a really important position for us to have great depth at because of the amount of carries and touches that position is getting, as well as hopefully our ability to have multiple guys on the field at one time. And that's something that will progress throughout the spring and the summer and the fall to trying to see what more those guys can handle mentally as it being a 2-back set, a 3-back set, being able to flex out, be wide receiver, those type of things.
And redshirt in any of them?
Well, no, not right now. I mean, it's obviously way too early to tell. But you know, one thing that we have kind of adjusted our thought on is if they're healthy and they're eligible, you play them. Because we're sure glad we played Greg Menard, because we didn't know he was going to have an injury going into a senior year. He gets that year back. Sure glad we played Nick DeLuca. Now he had the injury, gets it back. You know, if you're a senior that didn't play much as a redshirt freshman, but had the potential to, we're learning more. It's hard to stay healthy for 4 or 5 years here. Really hard to stay healthy for 4 or 5 years without a major injury. So right now we're looking to play all those guys.
5 years from now, you think spring football looks a lot different, that not just here, collegiate wide?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, are they going to eliminate more contact days? You know, I think that's something they could probably do. Now, if we were a team that we were done playing on November 15th, I'd want to get after it and let's start banging right away. Or a team that's on the rise or new staff, whatever it may be, those guys need to find out more about their teams. The more veteran teams or veteran staffs at whatever level, they know most of their guys, so I think you can probably eliminate some of the contact. But if you're a program that's trying to create a culture, trying to establish yourself, or trying to learn a certain way of doing things, I think that's where the spring ball really does help you.
Ben?
Friday after practice. I think I speak on Saturday morning. It'll be a neat experience, so I'm excited about doing that.